Pale Moon's second act is about to start, and where the main act was all about Golden Beast Tamer, this end show is all in favor for Gun Salute Dragan.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to part 2 of Vilest Deletor set review, and today we're going to cover all the Pale Moon cards that were introduced in this set. And it's a very interesting support set for Pale Moon, as seen as they diverged into a different kind of playstyle where they're not really specifically focused around superior calling units from the soul and putting more cards into soul. It looks like it's more about placing cards from hand and using soul as a way to fuel other skills, and then end it off with an amazing VR card that is Gun Salute Dragan. So let's jump right into these cards and see what these cards might tell for us what Pale Moon can do in the future for standard when this set is gonna hit the English format in a couple of months. So first up, we've got the 12k vanilla that I talked about yesterday from Murukuma. This time it's Diffusion Pierrot, and once again I give it only 2 stars as I do not really think it's a fit in Pale Moon overall. But in a new build for Gun Salute, maybe it's a good pick as it allows for solid hitting attacks. Alright, next up we got 3 interesting cards that works with each other. And the first one of this trio is Barbarous Chimera. And his skill is Act from Soul. If you have a Tri-Head Chimera or a Humorous Chimera on your Vanguard or Record Circle, cost, counterblast 1 and call this card to the Record Circle. Then if you have both of those units and this unit get power plus 5k until the end of turn. So it's a card that calls itself from the soul when you have either of the other 2 grade 2s on the field and you have all cards on the field, so the entire trio, then all of them get a power increase of 5k. So it's a great card that allows itself to call from soul, but it's a cost a counterblast, where a counterblast is very heavy towards the multi-attacking aspect. And it's a 7k grade 1, and the power is only when you have all in the field, and as you're gonna see with the other cards, it's a little bit tricky and a little bit awkward how to use them. So in that sense, I only give it 1 star, as I think it's a little bit too awkward to run in most senses, as you're gonna fill in 2 grade 2 slots and a grade 1 slot in a clan that is all about multi-attacking and utility uses of your superior calling grade 2s and whatnot. Makes it probably not that great. Maybe we're gonna run it, or maybe we don't, but we have to wait to see, but it doesn't look that promising right from the gate. The second one of these set is Humorous Chimera, and his skills on a Record Circle. When placed from hand, cost, discard a card, soul charge 2, and this unit get power plus 5k until the end of turn. If a card that was soul charged is a grade 2 or greater, call a card from your soul to the Record Circle. So basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna fill your soul even more and faster by discarding a card from your hand, but it's just, it feels a little bit too clunky, and the chance of getting a card from your soul, if that happens, can be really awesome. If something like an Alice, for example, comes out, then yes, that can be really great, but you're still a little bit relying on luck, as seen as it needs to be a grade 2 or greater, and that's probably a lower percentage than 50 or 40%, so depending on that, I think it's a little bit too awkward to run in the way that it does, and that's why I only give it 1 star again for this card. It might be a lot better if we see it in comparison with other cards, but I don't see it run in decks with the way that it works. Alright, the final card of this trio is Tri-Head Chimera, and his skill is Act from Soul, cost, Soul Blast 2, other cards, call this card to the Record Circle, and if you have a Barbarous Chimera and a Humorous Chimera on your Record Circle, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. In my sense, this card looks a lot promising than the other 2, as seen as it fetches itself from the soul by soul blasting cards instead of you wasting counterblast. And soul blasting cards might be a little bit tricky in a clan that works around the soul much, but a lot of the time you're soul charging a lot of dead cards, and you're not really doing that much. Also, with the Gun Salute build where you want to have an empty soul, this looks a lot more promising as you empty out your soul. Whereas Humorous Chimera fills your soul, that really doesn't do that much for the Gun Salute build. But you can see how this works in interaction with Humorous Chimera, as Humorous Chimera Soul Charge 2, this Soul Blast 2s again. But I think this is a lot better and can even run on its own, as it's just a solid card that fills the field when you are empty from hand, as it doesn't force cards from your hand to get another rearguard on the field. So in that sense, I give this one 3 stars, as unlike the other 2 that probably need to work with the whole play set, the whole trio, this card can function on its own in any kind of build, as it generates a rearguard on the field for the low cost of 2 Soul Blasts, of what basically probably are going to be 2 triggers you sadly had Soul Charge early in the game. Next up, we've got 2 Nightmare Doll support, or better known as Workeroid support, and they have similar skills, only 2 different grades. And the first one, that is Nightmare Doll Edith, and her skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When placed, this unit gets power plus 2k until the end of the turn for every other Workeroid on your Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. So this card becomes more powerful as more your field is filled out with a lot of cards, and she works with cards like Jumping Jill, Nitro Juggler herself, but not if she's in the field, but if another copy of her in the field. She also works with the other Nightmare Doll grade 2 behind it, and she works with Nightmare Doll Alice, and probably some other cards that I'm overlooking, but that's a lot of cards that already are working well with this one. But the problem with this card is it's just a powerhouse, and it doesn't really amount to much besides that. But it's a great one, and it can be tagged in anything to have a little bit more power, as seen as just with one other Workeroid, she's already a 10k booster, and that's already pretty damn fine. So in that sense, I will give it 3 stars, as she can probably even tag in the current Golden Beast Tamer build, as seen as we already have some Workeroids in the build. So who knows how good that already can be. Next up, we've got the grade 2 variant, and that is Nightmare Doll Roda, and she has the same similar skill. It's Auto Rearguard Circle when placed. This unit gets power plus 2k until the end of the turn for every other Workeroid on your Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. So once again, it's a very one-dimensional skill that's just about power, and she has a lot of other cards that works with, but as a grade 2, it's a little bit tricky in a sense that your grade 2s are usually more utility cards and amount to a lot more than just generic power. All granted, if you have 2 other Workeroids, she is a 13k beater, and a 13k beater means that it will hit 4s, and on Axle Circle that's 23, so that's a very nice magic number you're hitting. But overall, I think it's a little bit worse than the grade 1, so that's why I give it 2 stars, as we do not have a very good Workeroid related build that can amount to much. Next up, we got some utility cards, and the first one I want to talk about is Barking Dragon Tamer, and his skill is Auto Vanguard Circle. When placed, cast Counterblast 2, and put a rearguard into your soul. Retire all of your and your opponent's rearguards, and for each rearguard retired, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. Alright, I don't think that this card is really that great, and that's why I only give it 1 star, as seen as it costs 2 counterblasts, and basically all of your rearguards to field wipe your opponent's field, and to have 1 gigantic powerful attack. But Pale Moon isn't about a gigantic 1 single attack, it's all about multitasking and using your rearguards, and as soon as you sack your own field, that can bite you back into the ass. Also, a little side note, the unit isn't the dragon itself, it's the tiny girl on the shoulder that's riding the dragon, because it's the Barking Dragon Tamer. Alright, next up we have another grade 3 that sadly isn't that great, that looks like that is very promising and has a lot of potential, and that is Tricky Assistant. And she has 2 skills. Her first one is Auto and Vanguard to Rearguard Circle. When placed, cast, counterblast 1, choose one of your and your opponent's rearguards each, and put it into the soul. If 2 cards were put, this unit get power plus 10k until the end of turn. So it's a great card that when it's placed, you can put one of your rearguards in the soul to fuel your potential multitasking or other kinds of shenanigans, and at the same time remove 1 unit of your opponent's field, so it has a little bit of field control against your opponent. It's very nice in that sense. And then our other skill is Auto. When rode upon, you may call this card to the rearguard circle. So it's very similar to the Sonic Stinger Dragon, and it would have been an amazing card if it had a gift marker. Because this card doesn't have a gift marker, it's not really that great, as the first turn that you write it, you have no access to an Excel marker, and that turn will not amount to much. And then when you finally write into a good grade 3 that has a marker, then you suddenly only have 1 marker, and Pale Moon will become really scary if you get that second marker off. So in that, I think that this card is very limited and will probably not see that much play, and that's why I only give it 2 stars, as the first skill is a lot better than Barking Tamer, as it does not field nuke your own field. All granted, Barking Tamer would be great if they already destroyed your entire field. It had so much potential if it also had the gift marker on the card. Alright, next up we've got another Tamer, and that's Endive Beast Tamer, and her skill is Act on Rearguard Circle, cast, Counterblast Run, and rest this unit. Choose a column and call up to 2 cards from your soul to the rearguard circles in that column. So what this card allows you to do is set up your field for potential combo plays or even start combo plays. And although this card rests itself that looks really bad on paper, it allows you to refund that card immediately if you call out something like a Jumping Jill, for example, as you can then proc Jumping Jill skill and then put this card that's now rested back into the soul and call another card to the back row. So in that sense, it's basically only counterblast 1. But the main issue about this card, why I do not think it's that great, is the fact that it's either, once again, a counterblast that does not result in multi-attacking. It will set up your field, so in that sense, it might be okay, but it's a 5k grade 2. And that is really hurting the card, as when you write this thing, it's gonna hurt like hell. And when you call it onto an X circle or something, it doesn't really amount to much. Besides that, I'll only give it 2 stars, as I think it's a little bit niche in some sense, and I might overlook something that with the card, as I think it does something very important, but I cannot see it from my standpoint right now. Alright, next up we got another Beast Tamer, and that's Nephrite Beast Tamer, and her skill is auto on rearguard circle. When another rearguard is placed from your soul, cost, retire this card, call a card from your soul to the rearguard circle in the back row. So this card allows you to do some more multiplay shenanigans where you can fill out an entire column or do some other plays, as when this unit is boosted and it's already resting, you can retire to call another card in the back row. It will not allow you to generate more attacks as it calls to the back row, but it allows you to make a good column that can maybe generate some more hit pressure, like a Midnight Bunny, for example. So it's a fine utility card that will do something more. And in that sense, I will give it 3 stars, as it's a really awesome card, but we cannot really abuse it in a lot of sense, as you will only minusing more on the field and more on your soul, and you will not be able to sustain this for long. And if you run it in comparison with Purple Trapezus, then you'll probably go really fast for all your resources, so you need to be very careful when you activate all these skills. Alright, now we're getting to the creme de la creme of this set, and in my personal opinion, what better cards that we're going to see for Pale Moon and probably run in more decks. And the first one to kick this off is Visible Songstar, and this is new grade 3. And on the skill itself, it might be a little bit but when you look at it in more depth, this thing can be very scary. So her skill is on a Vanguard circle. When your unit attacks while it's boosted, cost, counterblast 1, put 2 rearguards into your soul and call a card from your rearguard circle. So what this card allows you to do is when you have a Beast Tamer turn, and usually when you go off in tandem, you might not do a lot of combos, or you are stopped in some part and you still have some counterblast left. This card allows you to use all your counterblast and use it to generate even more and more attacks, and as soon as it does not limitate where you call them, you can generate every new card from in the front row, so you can keep attacking, and you can also chain the same type of card, so you can keep recalling Alice's to the field without any restriction. And although it needs to put 2 cards into the soul, if you use it in combination with Purple Trapezus, you can then generate more rearguards, so you can keep chaining all these effects and you can keep generating more and more attacks. So as a final push card, this thing can be very scary. Although I do not think it's a great card when it's on the rearguard circle in your soul, but when you write this thing, when they are sitting at 4 or 5 damage, you can go for a game if you have a new counterblast, and in some scenarios can even be scarier than Golden Beast Tamer. So for that, I will give it 4 stars, as it can be really scary in some scenarios, depending on if you use this card correctly. Next up, we got a very interesting grade 1, and that is Magician of Quantum Mechanics, and his skill is auto rearguard circle. When played from soul, cost, retire 2 rested rearguards, soul charge 2, and draw a card. Although on paper this card doesn't really look that great, as you retire more cards and you're not really doing much, as seen as this is another 5k 5k power card, but this time it's a grade 1, so it's a little bit more excused in that sense. But what's great about this card is that it allows you to do some plays when you cannot do anything anymore. So your opponent has hit a damage trigger and you are stuck. You cannot do much and you need to end your turn, and that's about it. If you're even against a control clan, that can even hurt you more, as they can just retire your stuff and now you're sitting at the back feet and you have nothing to do. This card allows you to recover from that scenario, as you can call this thing out, retire 2 rearguards and get some value out of them. Draw 1 extra card, build up your soul for next turn, and do something. Then if they retire this card, it doesn't matter to you, as this thing already did its job, and it allows you to set build up your field or build up your resources for next turn while you're trying to kill them that time. So in that sense, it's a great card. It helps you recover some scenarios, but it's very specific in the type of scenarios when you can use it. It's not a great card if you want to keep pressing your offensive. So I will give it 3 stars, as it's a great overall tech option that might help you to deal with those nasty scenarios where you're over at fate and you're at death's door and you need a way out. Next up, we've got another great one, and that's Brassie Bunny. And his skill is on Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. When placed from hand, discard a card from your hand, draw a card, and if you have a Vanguard that is a grade 3 or greater, soul charge 2. This card looks a lot like the old style where you place card, drop, draw, and you basically cycle through your card and have more consistency in your deck. This is a great card that also does that. I think it's a somewhat different kind of play card that we've seen in the first set. That's the rest card and then soldier something. This card is in standing position when you use skill, so you can still boost with it or attack with it. So in that sense, it's a little bit better, but it's once per turn. But if you use it late game, you soldier immediately 2 cards. And it's just pretty damn good in that sense that it helps with consistency of your deck. And I think for that sense, I will give it 4 stars, as it's a pretty damn powerful card that allows for a lot of interesting play. Now we're getting to the last 3 cards. These are probably my favorite cards of the set, as they will allow for a lot of neat interactions with already existing cards and some new interactions with these new cards. So first off, we have Dancing Princess of Night Sky. And she has 2 skills. Her first skill is Auto Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. When placed from hand, cast, counter +1 and soul +1, and call a card from your soul to the Rearguard Circle. So what this does is when you call it, you can basically get some more power on the field and more units on the field and multi-attack right from the get-go. And since you can do it on your grade 2 turn, that can be a very aggressive early game. And if you think about it, if you write this thing on top of starting percenter, then you can build out an entire full field right at the get-go and start hammering your opponent right out of the gate, as you have enough soul, enough cards to force entire field in your front row and without wasting a lot of cards from your hand. And you can use starting percent to maybe put an Alice into the soul, and with this card you can call that Alice immediately out. So it can be a very scary grade 2 turn. And their other skills, Auto on Rearguard Circle, when placed from soul, this unit get power plus 3k until the end of turn. So she will turn into 12k attacker. With Golden Beast Tamer is a 50k attacker, so it's also a very nice number. And overall, it's a very good card that allows for more aggro plays in the early game, as well as some setup fields in the mid to late game. So I will give her 4 stars, as it's a very nice card that interacts well with some existing cards that Pale Moon already is using in the current builds. Next up, we've got another grade 2 that works similar in a way that it's a very good utility card that works well with starting percenter, and that is Misdirection. And her skills, Auto Vanguard the Rearguard Circle, when placed from hand, cast, counter +1, and put a grade 1 or less rearguard into your soul, draw 2 cards, and put a card from your hand into the soul. So what this does is it allows you to get more cards on hand and then selectively soul charge from your hand into the soul. It's a little bit better than just blindly soul charging from top of your deck, as seen as you now can put cards from your hand into the soul and keep the triggers into your hand. What was also awesome about this card is when you combine it with starting percenter, if starting percenter soul charged a terrible card that's great, that's a trigger for example, you can call it out. Well, you cannot attack with it, but then you can use Misdirection skill to put it back into the soul and activate her skill immediately without sacrificing an attacking grade 1, for example. Or when you went early game aggression, then you can put that grade 1 into the soul as with her skill. So she has a nice little interaction, and she promotes early game aggression. That's also really awesome for an Exo clan. So I think in that sense it's an awesome card. It also works with more consistency for the current builds and maybe even for new builds. So that's why I give this card 5 stars, as it's just an awesome card that does a lot for basically the low cost of only 1 counterblast, as you can generate 3 rearguards right out of the gate from nothing anyways. The last card of this set, and that's a big mouse monster that I want to talk about, is Gunslew Dragon End of Stage. I already talked about this card in this video where I went over the ups and downs of the card, and with the controversy that a lot of cards were with a lot of people that's saying that the card wasn't really that great. And basically I in that video went in and tried to defend the card, but at the same time keep a level-headed mind and see why it's not that great, what people think, and if that reasoning is correct or there's something that we're overlooking. But my final verdict for this card is going to be given right at this point. But first, I'm going to talk about the skills, as this card has 2 skills. And his first skill is Auto Vanguard Circle, once per turn. At the end of the battle that it attacked, if your soul has 0 cards, Cast, put 2 cards from your hand and all of your rear guards into the soul and stand this unit. And the second skill is Auto and Vanguard Circle when placed by riding from a grade 3. Soul Blast all your cards from the soul until the end of turn. This unit gets power plus 5k and all of your opponents cannot call sentinels from hand for the battle that this unit attacked. So basically what this card can become is a double 70k attacker that both have twin drive and both have a guard restrict that they cannot call sentinels to the field. That can be very scary in the right sense. And this card really promotes a playstyle where you either keep your soul very empty. That's why the grade 2 Chimera that I rated 3 stars and the other 1 star, so it works well with this card. But at the same time, this can also promote a deck that soul charges immensely a lot blindly, then call out Artilleryman that is very high powered, that pressure your opponent to either take the hit or keep guarding it. And when they take the hit, you can soul blast your entire soul and then use this skill without any problem, even as your first grade 1. So depending on the scenario, there are a lot of interesting interactions that you can do with this card, and that's why I definitely give this card 4 stars. And I think this card is going to be run in its own specific deck, probably with something like Artilleryman or these new grade 2s that are very aggro early game. So in the late game, this card will have more impact as you're not relying on multi-attacking in the late game, as this card really doesn't embody that. You can if you combine it with Purple Trapeze as they shown in the live stream at the time. So when you use the skill, put everything in the soul, then you can use Purple Trapeze, just soul blast all those Purple Trapeze out and call maybe the Artilleryman back to the field, and then keep hammering down with another wave of strong attacks. So it's a very interesting build and very curious of what it's going to bring for Pale Moon in Standard. And with that, we talked about every card for Pale Moon. And we've seen some interesting cards that might be an upgrade for the current Golden Beast Tamer build, but mostly were more tailored to a new playstyle where most cards work from placing from hand, as they look like they're going to be tailored towards Gun Salute Dragan, as that is probably an entire new build for Pale Moon. And I'm very happy that they made that approach, as more diverse gameplay is more interesting than just power creeping a similar build set over set over set. So I'm very happy with these new cards, and I'm very curious, I'm very hyped to start using these new cards and try figuring out the new playstyle and to see where things are going from here. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new cards for Pale Moon. Were they great? Weren't they really that great? Overlooked I some cards? Did I maybe underrated some cards that should have been a little bit higher than initially thought? So I'm very curious what you guys think. So let the discussion flow in the comments down below. And I see you guys tomorrow in part 3 of the Vilest Deletor set review, where we're going to cover, let me check, none other than Shadow Paladin. So I'm Mr. Time Leap, and see you guys in the next one.